The Madness of King Shahryar. Long ago there ruled a powerful emperor named Shahryar. He was a great ruler, but his world shattered when he discovered that his beloved wife had been unfaithful to him. The betrayal drove him into a state of profound, venomous madness. He came to believe that no woman on earth was capable of loyalty or truth. Driven by fury and a desire for absolute control, the king enacted a horrific law. Every night he would marry a new young woman from his kingdom. They would spend one royal night together, and the following morning, before she could ever have the chance to betray him, he would have his grand vizier, his chief advisor, execute her. For 3 years, a dark cloud of mourning hung over the city. Families fled, and the kingdom was slowly stripped of its daughters. The Grand Vizier was heartbroken, but he was bound by law to carry out the king's brutal orders. The Vizier's daughter. The Grand Vizier had a daughter named Scheherazade. She was not only remarkably beautiful, but she was also a woman of immense education. She had studied philosophy, history, medicine, and the arts, and she possessed a collection of thousands of books of ancient poetry and folklore. Seeing the suffering of her people, Scheherazade made a terrifying decision. She went to her father and said, "Father, I want you to marry me to King Shahryar." The vizier wept and begged her not to go, knowing it meant her death. But Scheherazade stood firm. "Either I will be the ransom for the daughters of this kingdom, or I will die trying." Before she left for the palace, she whispered a secret plan to her clever younger sister, Dunyazaid. The first night, the trap is set. That evening the marriage took place. When they were alone in the royal bedchamber, Scheherazade began to weep. When the king asked her why, she replied, "My lord, I have a younger sister whom I love dearly. I beg you to let her sleep at the foot of our bed tonight, so I may say my final goodbyes to her." The king, amused and feeling powerful, granted the request. Dunyazaid was brought into the room. An hour before the dawn, the time when the executioner usually prepared his blade, Dunyazaid woke up just as her sister had instructed. She looked up at the bed and said, "Dearest sister, if you are not asleep, please tell us one of your wonderful stories to pass the time before the morning comes." Scheherazade turned to the king. "May I have permission to tell a tale, my king?" Bored and restless, Shahryar nodded. "Speak." The cliffhanger Scheherazade began to spin a dazzling tale of magic, genies, and hidden treasures. She spoke with such vivid detail, building the tension higher and higher, until the first rays of the morning sun began to pierce through the palace windows, right at the most climaxing, thrilling moment of the story, where a hero's life hung in the balance. Scheherazade suddenly stopped talking. The king leaned forward, breathless. "What happens next?" he demanded. Scheherazade smiled softly and shook her head. "Alas, my king, the sun is up, and my time on this earth is at an end. I cannot finish the tale." The king sat there, his mind racing. His desire to know the ending of the story was warring with his brutal law. Finally, his curiosity won. He called for the vizier and announced, "I will postpone her execution for 1 day. She will finish the story tonight." The 1001 Nights. The Grand Vizier was shocked and overjoyed to see his daughter alive that morning. That night Scheherazade finished the story. But the moment it ended, she immediately began a second, even more fascinating tale. Once again, as the dawn broke, she stopped right on a terrifying cliffhanger, and so the pattern was born. Night after night, week after week, month after month, Scheherazade spun her web of words. She told the tales of Sinbad the Sailor, Aladdin, Ali Baba, hidden cities, and talking beasts. She populated the king's mind with stories of justice, mercy, love, and the consequences of tyranny. Without him even realizing it, her stories were acting as a mirror, slowly healing his madness and teaching him empathy. This psychological battle of wits lasted for 1001 nights, nearly 3 full years. The final morning. On the 1002nd morning, Scheherazade did not start a new story. Instead, she brought before the king 3 young children, the sons and daughters she had given birth to during their years together. She knelt before him and said, "O King of the age, for 1001 nights I have entertained you. Now I ask you for my life, not for my sake, but for the sake of these children, so they do not grow up without a mother." King Shahryar looked down at his children, and then at the brilliant woman who had saved him from his own darkness. Tears filled his eyes. "By the heavens, Scheherazade," the king said, lifting her to her feet, "I had pardoned you in my heart long before this day. Your purity, your wisdom, and your stories have washed away the poison in my soul. You are my queen, now and forever." The executioner's blade was broken, the kingdom rejoiced, and Scheherazade's stories became immortalized as a reminder that the mind can conquer the sword.